When we hear the word war, most of us picture soldiers, tanks, and battlefields, but there's another kind of war that uses no weapons at all. Instead, it uses tariffs, quotas, and trade barriers. It's called a trade war. And while it might sound less dramatic than military conflict, trade wars can shake economies, raise prices, and even threaten global stability. So what exactly is a trade war? In simple terms, it happens when two or more countries start putting obstacles in the way of each other's goods and services. The most common tool is the tariff, basically a tax on imports. Imagine country A thinks cheap foreign steel is hurting its own steel industry. To protect local producers, it slaps a tariff on foreign steel. Suddenly, imported steel costs more, so domestic steel seems more attractive. But then country B, the exporter, retaliates by taxing country A's goods. Back and forth it goes, until both sides are caught in a cycle of tariffs. That's the trade war. On paper, this might sound smart. Protect industries, save jobs, and keep money at home. But in practice, trade wars often hurt more than they help. Consumers pay higher prices, exporters lose access to important markets, and industries that rely on global supply chains face rising costs. And in today's world, almost everything depends on global supply chains. A smartphone, for example, might be designed in the US, use chips from Taiwan, rare earth minerals from China, and be assembled in Vietnam. Tariffs on just one of those components can raise costs for the whole product. So why do countries start trade wars? The reasons vary. Sometimes it's to protect domestic jobs from foreign competition. Sometimes it's to reduce a trade deficit when a country imports more than it exports. Other times, tariffs are used as political leverage, a way of forcing another country to the negotiating table. And in some cases, it's about rivalry, making sure competitors don't dominate key industries like technology, aerospace, or green energy. History shows us what can go wrong. One famous case is the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Designed to protect American farmers during the Great Depression, it raised tariffs on thousands of goods. Other countries retaliated, world trade collapsed, and the Depression only deepened. Economists still see it as a cautionary tale of how protectionism can backfire. More recently, between 2018 and currently, we saw the US-China trade war. The US accused China of unfair trade practices, like stealing intellectual property and heavily subsidizing industries. Washington responded with tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese goods. China hit back with its own tariffs on US products, including soybeans, cars, and electronics. The result? American farmers couldn't sell their crops, manufacturers faced higher costs, and consumers in both countries paid more. Even today, many of those tariffs remain, showing how difficult it is to undo a trade war once it escalates. So who actually wins a trade war? The short answer, almost no one. There can be short-term winners, like a steel company suddenly facing less foreign competition. But those gains usually come with bigger losses elsewhere. For example, car makers then have to buy more expensive steel, which makes cars costlier to build and buy. Studies of the US-China trade war show that American consumers ended up bearing most of the cost, often paying hundreds of dollars more per year for everyday goods. The irony is that trade wars rarely solve the problems they're supposed to fix. A country might hope tariffs will shrink its trade deficit, but what often happens is that consumers just pay more while the overall imbalance stays the same. Meanwhile, trading partners look elsewhere for new deals. Trust breaks down and everyone ends up worse off. But that doesn't mean tariffs are useless. Sometimes targeted trade measures can work, for example, protecting a young industry until it's strong enough to compete globally, or responding to unfair dumping when foreign companies sell products below cost just to drive competitors out of business. The difference is scale. Targeted actions can be useful. All-out trade wars, on the other hand, are usually lose-lose. Today, the risk of new trade wars is rising in areas like green technology, semiconductors, and rare earth minerals. Countries are racing to secure dominance in the industries of the future, and trade disputes are increasingly used as tools of competition. The question is, will history's lessons be remembered, or are we heading for another spiral of retaliation and damage? At the end of the day, trade wars remind us of one thing. In our interconnected world, economic conflicts don't stay contained. What hurts one economy often hurts many others. Tariffs may seem like weapons aimed at rivals, but more often than not, they act like boomerangs, coming back to damage the very people they were meant to protect. So the next time you hear about a trade war in the news, don't think of it as just governments squabbling. Think about your grocery bill, your next smartphone, or your job prospects. Because even though trade wars don't make the front pages as often as real wars, their impact can ripple through the entire global economy. If you'd like me to make more of these videos, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and till the next time.